Well, I think the story began with three individuals in this city realized that there were a great many people who didn't have a sufficient place to stay. A businessman downtown Peterborough who owned a store and lived and worked in the downtown area. A former RCMP officer, his background in policing allowed him to have a very good set of eyes to the issues around homelessness. He and his wife lived downtown as well. The third person was a pastor of a church in the area, and three of them used to meet together. One of the conversations, or the focus of the conversations, kept coming back to this problem of the number of men in our city who slept on the streets. So these three recognized the seriousness and the need for some kind of a safe place of dignity to provide shelter. As it kind of snowballed, I guess, grew to the idea that this is something we have to do, and we're passionate about seeing a way, finding a way to make it happen. I don't think they had any idea at the beginning of what that would involve in terms of the immense task of raising money, of getting people on board, of getting the city, of finding a place. But all of those things to these guys were secondary to, I think, their real drive and passion to do something because there was a need. They had found this house, Kingen House they called it, on the corner of Brock and Stewart Street. The thing about this property was that it did not require a zoning change. It was already zoned in order to allow this kind of use on the property, which was huge. They worked hard to raise funds. They didn't have the resources behind them, but they really felt that this is something that God was doing. The finding of this property was incredible for them and really gave them the drive to start fundraising. And it was coming up to closing, and the closing amount on the day of closing was about $70,000. And so far they had raised about half of that. They still needed $35,000. Closing date was Friday, and they met on a Thursday to pray. And they left that day deciding that they believed so much in this project that they were willing to go to the bank and see about adding a mortgage and remortgaging their own houses in order to come up with the $35,000. And so that Thursday after the prayer meeting, they went back to their places. Ken went to his store, and before the pastor got to his office, there was a message left for him from Ken to call him immediately. And when he did, Ken was beside himself. He could hardly talk. A person had dropped into the store and left an envelope for Ken, and it was marked as a donation to the Brock Mission. When he opened the envelope, there was a check inside for $35,000 and instructions that they were not to make known the name of that person. And so in that moment, there was this incredible infusion of excitement, of confidence, that here was a huge miracle. That which was only a dream became a reality. After that, I think those guys thought that anything was the limit. The sky was the limit in terms of what could happen around the Brock Mission. There's a sense in which the love of God is made real, not just in what we say, but in what happens and what is done. And for me, I think that's the power of the Brock Mission in our community. The need for the church to move outside of its walls in a very practical way, I think, is fulfilled in what the Brock is doing. In fact, I honestly believe that without places like the Brock Mission and other places where practical life is done, that the gospel has no meaning. It takes on meaning as we live the gospel through doing these kinds of things. I think it's a matter, for me personally, that the Brock provides an opportunity to see the gospel in action. Open door, open table, open hearts. It's our mission.